And move on down to our roundtable discussion amongst council members. And council, as we know, this is just a time for us to bring up any thoughts, concerns, questions we have for Joel or any other city staff. So did anyone have anything for roundtable this evening? Mike, Roger, Peter, Teresa, anybody?
I have a question. Do we have a plan for how we'll complete the draft of those goals? I saw we got the type up from what was on the board. Do we know what that process will be?
No, so if you recall, at the end of the meeting on Saturday, I think everybody said, we're gonna hit the pause button right now, and then I had those typed up. Parker did most of the typing. And I sent those out this afternoon to council. The ball is really in your court when you wanna schedule another special meeting to tackle those and go through prioritization and more discussion on those. But right now, I do not have a plan forward at this moment.
Council, do we feel like that should be a special meeting, something that we can get on study session in the next month? Roger?
Yeah. I mean, unless we've got other things pending for our study session, it seems like that's a good use of that time, rather than scheduling another meeting, which I'm never in favor of.
So.
But we can't make any decisions during our study session, so we could discuss it, but then
Right.
we'd have to put it on.
Yep. And usually those get approved with the budget, because they'll be included in the budget, but we can tweak them and get the wording the way that we want it.
The one thing, I mean, I'll push back against doing it during the study session. If you recall, when you rank your goals, you get up, you walk around, each individual marks the top three, and then you have dialogue, and then, the lowest ranked ones fall off, higher ranked ones get pushed up. There's some, not negotiating, but there's some discussion that happens. I'm not sure how a room set up like this would serve during that. Completely understand that additional meetings sometimes are not the most fun, but I just wanted to let you, I was just trying to visualize, Peter walking over to the wall and saying, I like this, 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 and then members of the public, being seated here. So
That makes sense.
that's the only thing I'd push back on a little bit.
Yeah, I hear you.
Sorry.
Dave?
I'm not really sorry either, so I don't know why I said that part. But staff will do whatever council wants to do. That's why I didn't want to give a recommendation in that email I sent out on the next step. I think council needs to discuss it more and how you want to rank those.
And we have more budget discussion coming in like April.
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, in April, you meet Wednesday and Thursday reviewing department budgets that are submitted.
So we just want to make sure that we get that done before those further budget discussions.
Does anybody feel we should do it kind of soon while it's fresh in our mind? Once everybody's had a chance to read them all and ponder it.
I wonder if it's worth even having a draft of, because we've got like bullet points of what we hand wrote on the whiteboard. Some of them are even similar and might end up being a specific goal. I wonder if it's worth having a draft of what the written goal might look like that we can all sort of provide feedback on. Because the next step gets more detailed, right? Like, how do we word the thing?
I don't think the staff needs to go through and do that. I think that's something we could kind of write ours out and see what we think.
I mean, do we want everybody to make a draft of the goals and then we all share?
I would say that we should kind of narrow it down to what our goals, we want the goals to be, and then we can draft from there, the actual verbiage, but. So, anyone have any thoughts on that? So,
Yeah, I would say that.
go ahead,
Dave, I
Roger.
sense that your issue, or that your concern is that we're gonna have a lot of cooks in the kitchen. Is that what you're feeling
Well,
like?
yeah, I mean, we have we have 7 cooks in the kitchen.
Right,
So
yeah.
it's, by definition, that's tough to write with 7 hands on the keyboard. And I think that's the challenging next step, right? Like, we could prioritize goals. I think in that discussion, we probably want to know, like, is there a limit to the number of goals we can have? Like, do we actually have to drop things off? And then we had a goal that I think I heard some consensus on of, like, should we explore being more of a green community, being more ecologically friendly, and that can be a tricky goal to write out. Like, how do we actually want to pursue that? What are we looking for there? And so sometimes just having something written down that's a little bit more descriptive that we can all poke at and say like, oh, I like this part, or oh, we should include this in that, or this is what I meant. That can be a really enlightening discussion.
I can definitely see that at some point we need to have that language, but I wouldn't want staff to have to write that for all of those things that we had listed. So that's why I'm thinking like if we prioritize that first and decide what it is that our priorities are, and then we can go back and draft.
Yeah, that's what I would say. We need to sit down first and decide what our goals are gonna be.
Okay, yeah. I'll be happy to follow whatever process
Okay.
steps you think are appropriate.
Okay. So Joel, we'll go ahead and discuss when to have a special meeting. Does anybody have any ideas as far as dates, like a day of the week that works better, at least to try to focus on?
Wednesdays are typically best for me.
Okay, they're gonna be on Thursday.
Thank you, Bill.
Does anyone have any problems with a Wednesday? No? Okay, we'll take a look at it Wednesdays in the next few weeks and see what we can come up with then. Okay, the only other things.
But
oh, go
just
ahead.
not this Wednesday, by the way. I can't do it this Wednesday.
Okay, that'll be pretty quick.
But Wednesdays are good.
Other than that, Wednesday should be.
We did get a forward from Joel about the MML CapCon that's coming up. So that's March the 15th and 16th in Lansing. If anybody is interested in attending that, make sure that you let Michaela know. I've went a couple years ago to the actual in-person, and then I did virtual last year. So I do think it's very beneficial. They have some really great breakout sessions with a lot of wonderful presenters. So I highly recommend it, and we'll take a look at my schedule to see if I can go. But yeah, we do have a budget for council to attend those types of trainings, so make sure that you let Michaela know if you're interested. And then, Dave, did your HDC group get together? Did they meet? Okay, could you just kind of let us know what you guys discussed, if you had any goals, what the focus is going to be? Because I think we need to determine how we're gonna name this group, or if it's gonna be that study group we've talked about, if it's a subcommittee, if it's a completely separate entity.
Okay, yeah, so we discussed values of the HDC and perceived problems for the HDC, and we discussed a little bit of where we think requirements fit into the bigger scheme of things. Stuff we're following up on now are simple things like I sent out a copy of the ordinance to everybody, a copy of the state law, and then a copy of the CFR, which would be the Code of Federal Regulations that, so then you get your different layers of governance over the historic districts in general and how they're formed. One of the big questions that came out of that everybody's got to come back with is what's the definition of historic? Like, how do we, if we're going to evaluate what the historic features are of a historic district that need to be preserved, we need to understand how we define those. The issues of what does it mean? What's special about the Marshall Street District? Why was that formed? What are we trying to preserve there? What you find when you start looking at the CFR and the state law is that a lot of it gets driven down towards the historic district application or the historic district itself defining the things that are of value to the city, state, or nation is how they word it in the regulations. So defining that, understanding how to assign value to those things is kind of the next step for the meeting that will be coming up. So a lot of it is about understanding the landscape, understanding the processes, understanding the rules, to get to that point where the HDC is knowledgeable enough to move forward with reform.
And is it your intention that this is a subcommittee of the HDC, or what is the makeup? I know Peter and I have mentioned that by ordinance, a study group, if we were to assign a study group, then under the ordinance there to look at removing or eliminating a district, adding or, reducing the size of that. So is that what your group is looking to do? So we need to appoint them as that study group? Is it HDC members? I'm just trying to get a clear idea of what the group is.
So like I've mentioned before, all the HDC members were invited. 5 of them are part of that group. You could call it a subcommittee. I've got a couple community members who have joined in to help assist with the process and provide background where possible and, take notes and be a secretary so that the group can focus on discussion. I don't know that, I would hesitate to say that we are definitely going to be removing structures from the historic districts. That's a little bit like when the big tobacco companies say, oh, well, do a study and prove that cigarettes are safe for everybody. Like, you don't do that when you're approaching the study, especially, I think the more that we look at where the HDC is at and how our applications were designed and what the state laws and the Code of Federal Regulations dictate need to be included in a study like that, I think the more we see a challenge of how do we prove that something has lost its historical significance? What aspect of that historic district has changed that would cause us to say, oh, these things are no longer in? It's really hard to define. We haven't been doing that assessment on a routine basis, which is part of the challenge that we have now. So on a regular basis, you should be going through each of your historic districts and assessing if you've lost any of the valuable historic features. So now we're kind of having to reassess that 30 years later of where are we really at on these things and what do we care about and what's historic and what's just kind of there.
Okay, did anybody have any questions or, my only, concern is what we define this as, because as a subcommittee, it's not technically open to the public. So
Okay.
I'm just thinking of WUSC, how we had our WUSC committee and then we came forward to council with, changes in policy and things like that. Is that what you guys are planning on doing? So we just consider you're a subcommittee?
We could do that. This is going to happen in phases, right? Like the first phase is really understanding all the rules, and then eventually we may get to a point where we would, I think the big thing is making sure that we understand how to do that work that you're referring to in the laws. And that's more complex than it sounds.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure out if it's like a city-sanctioned group or if it's just like a community group that's getting together.
If you want to call it a subcommittee for now, and then once we've got some more information on how we would operate a more formal study and justify things like removing structure, I think we could do that for now and just call it a subcommittee. That's fine.
Joel, you were,
Yeah, just very quickly for clarification, the WUSC was a 3-member subcommittee of city council. Therefore, it was never a quorum. Therefore, you were able to meet without notification. Public notification is what I meant to say there. So you didn't have to operate under the Open Meetings Act. If this becomes a city committee, you are now a public committee. And you would have to be, your meeting notices have to be noticed appropriately. 18 hours notice before each meeting, posted in a public place. And you would be open to the OMA. So you would have to be open to the public. The public can come in.
My plan had been to operate under OMA rules just to keep everything safe for now. And the first report that you get from that group will not be a report that says remove X number of houses from these districts. The first report will be, here's what's really going on with the HDC. Here are the problems that we've found. Here are the things that we might have been lacking in our processes and our definition within our historic districts. And then from there, we can all talk about what the next step is to create reform, the best reform, not just sort of like whatever comes to mind.
and that's why I'm just looking for clarification, Dave, because if it is the study group that, Peter and I have mentioned a couple times, then they have a certain task to them. And we can appoint, HDC as that, or any group that council wants to appoint to that. If that's not the purpose of this group, then we wouldn't want to appoint them as the study group.
Okay.
So then it
we
would-
can just wait on that.
Okay, do you have any like timelines? I mean, at strategic planning, it was like 6 months to a year and a half. I mean, can
It was,
we?
it was actually 6 to 12 months. I'm not sure where the 18 came from, but I think that's, I don't know a reason why I would expect it to be less at this time. I think I could come back with something in 6 months and let you know. I will know much more about where we stand in 6 months, probably even in 3 months. But in terms of an actual, like, here's what we're gonna do to make things better, I'd hate to commit to anything on that right now. I think I can give a report in 3 months and I can give a report in 6 months, and if I'm still working on it, then I'll give a report in 9 months. I
Okay.
think that's probably fair.
Thank you. Did anybody have any questions? Is everyone okay with this being set up as a subcommittee of the HDC? Okay, all right, thank you.
And staff is okay with that?
I don't, is there a concern that's going on here?
I think Joel's concerned about the restrictions.
Yeah.
I'm trying to follow the conversation, and I'm not clear. Is this a study committee that's being formed under our ordinance, which has to be approved by city council? Or is this still just a citizens group coming together to go through the process? I mean, I'm still just not very clear on just what happened in the conversation there.
I think we just,
We talked about having, a group appointed at the next meeting.
Yeah.
And now I'm hearing, don't worry about that part yet.
Yeah, let's just put a pause on that for a little bit.
Okay.
And we'll operate
That's
as a
where the
subcommittee.
curveball is for me.
Yeah,
Dave and I, as Dave mentioned, he's gonna operate the meetings under OMA. We are, but they're really not subject to OMA, but we're still unlocking the doors. I'm staying for the entirety of the meeting in my office working on other projects, because you can't lock a door when a public meeting starts. That's just isn't right or ethical on any level.
so staff isn't involved in the meetings?
No, I am not.
But somebody's taking minutes and
Yeah, yep.
posting those minutes somewhere?
yeah, well, we're waiting on the minutes to come back and then also taking notes and.
Yeah.
um,
So you're walking a fine line when using words like post those minutes, because this isn't really a city sanctioned.
Well, but if it's a subcommittee then, of the HDC, then it is, correct? That's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of, is like how this interacts with
Yeah,
the
so I still
city.
view this as a citizens committee, of which several members of the HDC are members of. And the only thing I'm a little just concerned of, as I hear the discussion going on this evening, is if we have 4 or more members of the HDC at that meeting, are we gonna run afoul of an OMA? Because it's not really an HDC meeting, but it's a group of people talking about historic district regulations, of which a quorum of your HDC is present of.
Yeah,
So
so that's,
I'm just a little bit, there's a little kink in my neck when I hear that stuff.
I mean, that's why we had planned to operate under OMA rules,
Yeah.
just to be safe. And we'll submit minutes to the city and make sure that they stay in the public record. And we're trying to be transparent about the process and.
Yeah, and I'm not worried at all about transparency. I'm just worried about whether this is like a city-sanctioned group, if this is a separate group, if it's, I know from this discussion that it's not gonna be that appointed group, because by ordinance, that group is required to do those specific things, and that's not part of what you're looking to do at this point. So we're not gonna assign that as the study group.
Okay,
But if you're just operating as a citizens community group under the OMA, then,
okay. Yeah,
Okay.
no, that seems wise. Thank you
Okay.
for the clarification.
okay. Did anyone have any other subjects for roundtable this evening? No? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on down to the discussion regarding the M40, M89 Hubbard Street realignment. Staff?
Sure, very quickly, Thomas, you want to walk up to the podium as I introduce this? I believe it was the 27th or the 13th of December was the last time MDOT was here. We had some discussions about the realignment of Hubbard and M40, M89. Council had some questions of MDOT. MDOT said, let us go back to the drawing table, get some more, information for you. Since that time, MDOT has met with city staff and Abbott Marsh, our engineer of record, on some of the information that they gathered, and we decided that bringing it to you on the 24th, which is tonight, is the appropriate time to bring it back for discussion. I do want to be very clear. We're going to have to make a decision by February 14th, and that was in the memo provided by MDOT. So we do need to roll up our sleeves a little bit and, let MDOT walk through their presentation. Thomas, they have your full report that you submitted. I believe Doug sent that to you as well, so you saw what they saw. On the screen we got a handful of just the drawings, just the slides.
Okay.
All right?
Great, thank you. And, thank you all for the opportunity to discuss, the M89, M40, Ely and Hubbard Street intersection again. When I do ask for the next slide, if you can just help me out, that'd be great. The MDOT team would like to, take time to run through all the information in the study packet this evening before we open it up for questions and comments. And just to recap, the first page of the memo that was included in that information, highlights kind of, the partnership between MDOT and the city of Allegan over the course, of the last year as we work towards a collective goal of, delivering the MDOT resurfacing project, with the changes at Hubbard Street, to make that a two-way intersection, or two-way street, and gateway into downtown. And, before we dig into the, additional information, that we've compiled since we were here in December, I just want to reiterate that all of these are concepts. The plans are concepts, the estimates are concepts, all of the traffic modeling we've done to date, is concepts. And as Joel mentioned, we're here again, looking to seek, the city council's support, of this project so we can move forward and dig into the formal design and really hash out all those details, as we go on the plan development process, which would take place over the next 18 months or so, with the goal of delivering this project, in 2024. And, we have to walk it through all of our processes, as a state highway department, including our environmental review, I guess all the discussion of, historic districts, brought up that this intersection, I guess, is kind of at the crossroads of, I guess it's the Pritchard's Overlook Historic District and, the Griswold Civic District, I believe. So, there could be a SHPO component of, changes here. So just, understanding that, those would be the details that have to be hashed out, in design. And I guess, to touch on, I guess, what we've called option 5 here, the right in, right out at Ely Street. That was the main change in this alternative from when we had discussed it back in December. Previously, it was called, I guess, option 4C. And we had discussed the constraints with the left turns locking up at Ely Street, both those folks trying to turn left onto Ely from the northbound, I guess, Cedar Street, and then folks also exiting Ely Street left or north, onto Cedar Street. So we did, compile this, I guess, plan view graphic. The red text just highlights, or the red boxes, in text highlight, what portion of the estimate is broken up, at city's costs versus the state's costs. The numbers, came out basically right at 700,000, very similar to the option 4C. And I guess the concerns that the department has with this alternative is, that right in, right out at Ely Street, restricting traffic there. We understand that's a vital connection, for the city. And then if you could scroll to the next page, I know has the estimate, I think. Oh, perfect, yep. So this is a turning template or a graphic that depicts a school bus trying to, I guess, navigate that right turn exit on Ely Street, and then try to make their way, I guess, to the left, I guess, onto what is the new Hubbard Street. And if you go to the next slide, okay, we might have missed, might have been one other, I guess, graphic that showed the truck, or bus completing that turn. But it's gonna be really difficult, almost impossible for a vehicle to make that movement, you know, unless they're the only vehicle on the road. So I guess those were the main concerns that we would have, you know, with this alternative.
No, there's not there now.
So, and then I guess switching gears, yeah, if we could jump to the roundabout, please. Same, I guess, graphic or concept that we discussed before. However, previously the estimate was broken down as a 60-40 split. You know, the city had 2 legs of the roundabout, 40%. MDOT had 3 legs, 60%. We've retooled the estimate so the city's only paying for portions of what you see in red, i.e. the Hubbard Street, you know, connection, all the sidewalk, you know, pedestrian improvements there, and then a split for, I guess, the proposed, I guess, retaining wall that we have identified in green, you know, on that slope there in the northeast side. In addition to, you know, a few other, you know, project costs that we have split, you know, broken out as in partnership between, you know, MDOT and the city. So the revised, I guess, total of this estimate would have the city's share in the ballpark of $780,000. And again, you know, these are just estimates, you know, based on the information we have at this time. And then, yeah, if you don't mind, I can maybe speak on the next graphic and touch on some of the other, you know, discussion or comments that we heard last time. One of which was how the Cedar Street corridor, or, you know, M89 in this area would operate with a roundabout in conjunction to the signalized intersections to the north at both Cutler and Monroe Street. And, you know, based on the traffic volumes we have from April 2021, the traffic model for the existing, you know, Cutler Street signal shows that during peak hours, the northbound queues do not back up beyond Trowbridge Street, and that is due to the detection that's in the pavement that allows, you know, both the northbound through and left turns to clear. That detection would be replaced, you know, with our resurfacing project. It would still operate, you know, with a roundabout. So we don't believe there would be an adverse effect with having a roundabout, you know, within the proximity. I think it's like 850, 875 feet between Ely Street and that color signal. Another, I guess, comment we received was concerns with pedestrians, you know, navigating, I guess, the roundabout safely. The existing pedestrian crossings at this intersection in this area, I guess, range from anywhere from 50 to 75 feet. And you're crossing multiple lanes of traffic coming from multiple different directions. Here, at any one of those legs, the crossing width for a pedestrian to travel is no more than 20 feet, and you do have, I guess, the refuge islands to seek, I guess, shelter in when you are crossing, I guess, 2 lanes. So because of the shorter distances, the slower speeds of vehicles at a roundabout, and the fact that you're only, I guess, crossing 1 lane of traffic is why we believe that the roundabouts are safer, you know, for pedestrians. And I guess the last general, I think, item we received a comment on was, I guess, commercial vehicles or larger, you know, permitted loads that go through this area, you know, how would they navigate the roundabout? You know, this roundabout is designed, you know, using those similar turning templates that you saw the school bus there on Ely Street, you know, so the vehicles can, I guess, accommodate all these moves that you would need to make. I think actually the study packet that you received in November showed some red turning templates with those roundabout graphics, and we've provided a resource that shows a YouTube video with some larger, you know, vehicles traversing roundabouts and how that can be done, I guess, safely and effectively. So we don't have any concerns with that. That green inner ring of the roundabout is actually a concrete truck apron that's designed for, you know, those larger vehicles to mount and traverse. So, and the one other thing that we would like to add outside of the few links that we included in the pamphlet, just have some additional information for those that are interested on roundabouts. You know, the state does have, I think, over 50 trunk line roundabouts already, in place. Obviously, there's many other local communities that have roundabouts in place. And I know we'd received another question about, traffic volumes, comparing, this roundabout to an existing roundabout. And Nathan has some additional information he can share on that. Pass out these graphics. We didn't have this prepared in time for the study packet there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nathan Schilling with the Michigan Department of Transportation. I am the traffic and safety engineer. I work out of Grand Rapids for the department. I just wanted to share briefly about the information that we just handed out to you. I know there was a request from someone on the city council about traffic volumes. Thomas talked about the modeling that we do for roundabouts, and we look at a lot of different things, gaps and origin, destination information, and do more thorough modeling. But sometimes it's just helpful for a simpler view of a roundabout and what it might look like to have a roundabout in the city of Allegan. So, as Thomas said, we looked at different roundabouts around the state. There's over 50 on state trunk line. On the back, there's a list of a bunch of different roundabouts that MDOT has implemented around the state. MDOT's been doing roundabouts for over 10 years and continue to do them. There's 10 plus roundabouts planned for state trunk line in the future. As far as the front side, as part of that modeling, there's peak hour volumes, the number of vehicles that would go through the roundabout in the intersection. So the numbers that I put on there are the number of cars that would approach the intersection on each bound. The second intersection there is a roundabout in Grand Rapids. It's not on state trunk line, but it sees a large amount of traffic. There's also pedestrians and bicycles that use that, and it's important to accommodate all types of transportation. So it has substantial volumes approaching. If you add up the total, it's about 1,600 vehicles for that roundabout in Grand Rapids, and the expected volumes on this roundabout in Allegan would be about 1,600 vehicles also. So I think that covers what I have. I can answer questions, and Thomas and Art can answer questions that you have as well.
Thank you guys very much for this additional information. Council, did you have any questions at all for the MDOT representatives? Doug, did you have anything further to add, or? No? Okay. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Roger.
Well, this is, it's just much more attractive than the last time I heard it. I wasn't here for the December 13th discussion, but I mean, from a price standpoint, from a timeline standpoint, from a pedestrian standpoint, like all the big concerns that I have seem to have been answered. So, and I've always been a big supporter of the roundabout anyway. But I appreciate all of this extra work that you did, because it does answer a lot of the concerns that were brought up. So, appreciate it.
Thanks, Roger. Peter?
I have a couple questions. I don't see a pedestrian walkway on the north side of Marshall. Is there any plans for us to do that so we can actually complete that around the lagoon? We have it on the bridge, and there's plenty of people that walk on that north side, but I don't see an actual sidewalk there. One of my concerns for pedestrian safety is specifically at the bypass from the cutout is trying to cross at the middle there and seeing traffic coming down the hill, which of course is not going to slow as much as the traffic going into the roundabout. Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, the bypass is this section. So that crosswalk right there is the one that I'm most concerned about. because that traffic is not necessarily gonna slow when it comes down like you would coming into a circle because you're going into a bypass. So my biggest concern would have some sort of safety device, whether we have a sign that actually says you must yield for pedestrians, and a pedestrian can press a button and turn on a flashing yellow light to tell people they have to yield. Because it's kind of also a blind corner right there, because the pedestrian sitting down at the bottom at that crosswalk isn't gonna necessarily be able to see all the way up the hill with the tree lines there. The curbs that are used on the islands, those concern me about plowing, whether those are gonna be 3-inch curbs, or those all gonna be rollover curbs at the diamonds. So you have all those little diamonds where you're dividing traffic. Are those gonna be hard 3-inch curbs, or are those gonna be a roll-up type curb? Because we all see what plow trucks do to all of our curbs.
State will plow it, so.
Well,
their
state will plow
choice.
that, but we have to plow our sections.
Not through there, we don't.
To Hubbard Street.
Well,
Up
Hubbard
on
Street and
Ely.
Ely, yeah.
Yep. So we do have to maintain that part, and it's just a concern of mine, is I prefer some sort of round, because I also don't want it to look nasty after it gets nailed by a plow truck, and we have this big broken out curb that doesn't get repaired, or just kind of sits there.
Right, so, do you want me to jump in,
Yeah,
or did
go-
you have
jump
more to
in.
say? So for the first part, that bypass, and, for the roundabout in general, traffic calming is something that we would implement on this roundabout. So traffic calming can be signing, it can be flashing lights, it can be pavement markings, it can be, whatever, you name it. But, we did a roundabout in the, Grand Rapids area, Walker, Michigan, and initially had a design, and it came back and adjusted pavement markings and signing and things like that to get drivers to act the way that we wanted them to act. That has pedestrians there as well. And so, as Thomas kind of said, this is concept, so there's no signing on this plan, there's no pavement markings on this plan, but we would work on those things to make the bypass, or that bypass pedestrian friendly, so.
Okay.
As far as curbs, I would say a similar thing, that this is a concept. We haven't put what types of curbs would be in there, but if the city has concerns about certain types of curbs, that's something that we'd absolutely work with the city on as we go through design.
Okay.
Just to speak to the connection of the city sidewalk on the north side of Marshall there, to the bridge, you know, that was, I guess, a gap identified in our project limits, if you will. And I guess, you know, that would just be something that we would look, you know, to partner with the city if they were interested in making that connection. Obviously, you know, with the exception of the retaining wall shown, we are actually shifting, you know, the road a little bit there to accommodate, so hopefully we don't have to, you know, impact the park too much. We have a wide shoulder there since we've done the road diet, you know, the 3-lane conversion a few years ago, so there could be room to, you know, provide that facility if that was something we wanted to add. And again, that's just something we would need to know and, I guess, you know, communicate and plan for.
Thank you.
If I recall correctly, the minimal conversation we had there was that using that shoulder as like a walk area, but then how do we physically separate pedestrians from a travel lane? And, you know, would it be like a raised asphalt curb or a raised curb? I mean, we had minimal conversations on that. With this newest design, you know, is there opportunity for us to use the earth above the retaining wall and, you know, punch a sidewalk through there? The problem we run into is you get closer where Hanson Park is.
Yep.
It shrinks real quick, as you probably know, as you drive that area. I mean, and when I see people walking on that shoulder, I'm always like, oh, that's not the safest place for someone to be walking.
That's why I mentioned it, because I do see people walking on it, so if it's gonna be a natural path, we should see if we can provide a safer natural path
Yeah.
when we're looking at the redoing this all and reconstructing it all.
Yep. And Joel's correct, we talked, I mean, there's some drainage issues on that slope there on the north side, and, you know, that would be an opportunity potentially is, you know, partner some drainage and, you know, sidewalk, you know, together, so that would be something we can hash out for sure.
Council, were there any other questions for Nathan or Thomas? Go ahead, Dave.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate all the information coming back to council. I think this was really helpful, and appreciate a reassessment of the costs between the city and state too. That was generous.
And Roger actually spoke to my two main concerns that I had. My number one was the timing, to go from, wait till 2028. So to get that back down to 2024 is much more attractive to me, and obviously the cost as well. No other questions or comments?
Then I want to be very clear. You are going to have a resolution at your February 14th meeting calling for full support on moving forward with a redesign of this intersection to a roundabout, with a price tag that we're going to put in that resolution, understanding that we're bidding this out 2 years in advance. And so things can change in 2 years. So if there's hesitation amongst council members about a roundabout direction, I want
Speak now.
to speak now, or, man, February 14th will be uncomfortable for me. Not that my uncomfortableness matters or should matter to people, but I want to make sure you guys are comfortable, because you're at that point of making a decision of what direction we're going to go with this intersection, because they can't wait, the state can't wait any later, because then we slow everything down on their end.
Right. Thomas, do you want to clarify? It's not, we'll talk, Thomas can say what we need in February and how some of this process would work in agreements with the state.
Yeah, and I guess just to piggyback off, what Joel was saying, the 2028 timeline that I guess may or may not have been discussed was if we miss the opportunity to partner, these intersection improvements with this project, we kind of have to go back to the drawing board. We're going to come through here and resurface. It's probably 10 or 15 years after we do that before we're back in this area again. And then we'd have to, work together to go after competitive safety or operational funding. The state has worked, because we think this is, such a strong candidate for an improvement. We've gone out and gotten the additional, I guess, funds that you see on the MDOT side of the estimate. And we are kind of at a key, I guess, fork in the road to be able to, go down that path, secure that funding, and, hash out all these level of design details, get our consultant partners on board to deliver this, for both the state and the city. So thank you for your consideration, and I guess if you have anything else, please, don't hesitate to reach out through Joel and Doug. So thank you.
So,
Thank you.
so am I hearing that we're gonna have a price, but the price means nothing because we're 2 years out?
Well, I guess in reality, yes, we let projects through a low bid system. So we kind of broke out that estimate, based on items. So the state would enter into an agreement with the city of Allegan, which we do on all of your local agency projects. It's pretty standard language. There's these items of the project, so all that area in red, we calculate all the asphalt, the, earth, excavation, curb, et cetera. And the city would have, X number of tons, X number of feet, and then that price, we can't guarantee what the price is for those items. So that's how the estimate would vary is, obviously, just like all projects.
So what is your guesstimate that we could be off?
Well, we have, I think it's basically cumulatively over 9%, inflation in that estimate, 3% every year. We're using, I guess, 2021 prices, and we're talking 2024 construction. It's just we're in a really volatile market right now. I think no matter what industry you're in, and those prices can change, and it's difficult to forecast, if that makes sense.
Just to be clear, the cost-sharing model that's created in this, that would remain, so the portion of the
Sure.
city's cost of the project would be the same?
Correct, yeah, because
Okay.
it's all relative to, I guess, I know those are very high-level, I guess, polygons that are shaded, but, if we're on this side of Hubbard Street and it's sidewalk, and there's a handful of other split, items, traffic, lighting, landscaping, those type of things. That's how the agreement would be broken out. There'd be and our plans will have a different category. MDOT, X number of whatever item, city, X number of whatever item, so. That's how it would be designed. I mean, and that would be very transparent throughout the whole process. I mean, we will have at least 3 different milestone reviews, that we can share that information on where we are with the budget, as those prices, become closer and closer to a reality.
The prices you gave us include the increase that there possibly could be at 3% per year? Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, if you look, I believe on the bottom of that estimate here.
So if it goes up 4% a year, we're responsible for the other 1% each time, correct?
Sure, I mean, it's
The
across.
percentage of
Yeah, I
ours.
understand everything's
Yeah.
going up,
Yeah.
so I mean, I just wanted to know the bid that you're getting or what you're telling us that we're going to owe included the inflation factor for that time frame.
Yeah, and the inflation factor is just to pad our numbers, so we,
Understand,
it's
okay.
just,
So that's in there. My other concern is on, and it affects me, is on South Cedar Street.
yep,
Is there gonna be going to the right is no problem with any of this stuff. I have to go home.
Sure.
I cross all that.
so you're saying you're gonna be, I guess, coming, from town, turning left into Cedar?
Correct.
Yeah,
Turning on to South Cedar
sure.
from M40.
Yep. I guess the one benefit, we do know there's some issues out there after our last resurfacing project, the ballards that were in place on that shoulder. From a sight distance standpoint, we should be improving things a little bit by, kind of that slight T intersection you see. We are able to realign that a little bit. And I guess in reality, the gaps that you would have, I guess, from M40 or Jenner North traffic shouldn't really be affected, I guess, by this roundabout. Now, are you saying that in the evening when you go home, the only gap
Well,
you get is because
with
people
what-
are stopped?
With the light there
Sure.
that we have,
Yep.
and people stop, and they stop back, but there's always people that, I don't know what you're calling them, sticky up things that you've got
Yep.
there. They go right over them.
Sure, no,
That
and
doesn't stop anything. And hasn't happened in a long time, but when I was a young man, there was a child killed there. And that always worries me. And, people are just too much of a hurry.
sure. And I mean, that would just be the lane designation.
Okay, so there would be one of those there yet?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I was concerned
Okay,
about.
yeah, sorry.
So Bill would be crossing 2 lanes to turn up to Cedar?
Just one.
No, we're not.
Okay,
We're
okay.
not, I guess, and again, concept level, but I guess the end of the gray shaded, I guess, pavement and curb that you see, I guess in the far left of that graphic, that's, we're basically tying back into the existing. Today, through Cedar Street, it is only 1 lane going northbound, and that's what's causing these issues with the little plastic thingies in the pavement as people are bypassing, trying to get, to go right, so.
Right, okay.
To save 30 seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else, Council? Thanks, Bill.
Only one last thing. You talked about looking at the traffic in April of '21. Did you do any adjustments for, of course, COVID, reducing overall traffic? Like knowing that the overall mobility, using such things as Google's they track mobility and different things, and they've shown, reduction of overall
Yeah, I mean, I think
movement.
for sure, we avoided the week of spring break. We made sure to coordinate that. But yeah, we did apply a COVID factor. I'd have to get back to you with what the adjustment was. I think the volumes we were seeing, I guess, in April, were certainly, April 21, were certainly a lot closer to normal than you would have seen, I guess, in April of 2020. And we did do some historical, I guess, comparisons, because we were actually projecting out an increase in our traffic model. How much more traffic are we gonna have? Because we look 20 years ahead when we're modeling, I guess, these intersections for comparison. And I guess 20 years back, the volumes at this intersection were actually very similar to what they are now. So I think, we assumed, a 1% growth, which was very, very conservative, compounded annually. But yeah, I don't think we're gonna necessarily see that
Okay,
level.
that was just my.
Sure,
like
no,
to
that's-
make an adjustment, at least
Yep.
take it into consideration when looking at that.
Great. Well, thank you, gentlemen, very much. Appreciate all this reworking that you've done and presentations that you've provided for us. And you do not need to stay if you're ready to go. But
One other thing to cover, so back to, like, the resolution in February and then the agreement, and what the timeline of the resolution and then an agreement where the city's actually entering into an agreement with us. If you want to cover that, Thomas, or Art?
I'll try, and Art can tell me if I misspoke. All we're really looking for at this point is the resolution. We wouldn't enter the agreement, like, I guess whoever has the authority to sign wouldn't sign the agreement until we have our final plans and our final estimate. And we just like to have that agreement in place before we send the I guess, contract out to bid for the contractors. So that would be, I guess I'm gonna say, late summer, fall of 2023 as we get ready for the 24 construction season. Yeah, the resolution is just a component of the support that we need to take to our leadership to get approval for the roundabout and to, I guess, leverage the additional funding that we've been seeking. Is that accurate?
Yeah, you're doing great. You're doing great. I've done my level best sitting back here without getting up here and talking the last 2 times I've been here. Anybody that knows me real well is I don't like to stop talking when I start, so I'll try not to. I know you guys got busy things on your mind, but from a high-level process standpoint, we've got back to the original request. The city's partnered with us very graciously to look at this intersection. We know this has been, a interest point for the city for over 2 decades. We're here for a project to do a significant improvement. We want to try to, bring that to fruition if we possibly can to do good on all that work that's been done over the last 2 decades. We didn't come to town with our project with an additional $2+ million. That is something that, working with Joel and working with the city staff, that we realize is a very important component to what they're doing. They gave us a concept early on with our design that said, we want to relocate Hubbard. The city has expended resources, as the MDOT has, to study that idea. The outcome is really this idea that will, kind of get us to the next stage of whatever Allegan's going to be. If you had Google Earth up here right now, you would see from a bird's eye view how important this intersection is for the city and what kind of connectivity, the city has. The city is really fortunate that it has the river that runs through it. It's also really challenged because it has the river that runs through it. And creative solutions like this in a moment of opportunity, I think is where MDOT is able to help and shine. So we come up with this money, we come up with this idea. The agreement will not have design costs in it. Our agreements usually do have design costs in it. We felt that the amount of work that we already put into the design, we were gonna cover ourselves. So any additional funds that we're gonna pay consulting activities and those kinds of things for the project will remain project costs and not shared with the city. We've got back to the original proposal that Hubbard Street realignment would be the focus for the city's share. So that's how we got back there. We highlighted that thing and said, you know what, that wall kind of goes with that to try to get that Hubbard Street realignment. So we partnered 50% on that. And then we also said, all these city walks that redo there, that could be a city component as well. That's the department at large does not necessarily always build pedestrian facilities and that kind of thing. That'd be a place for us to shake hands instead of this idea of a 40-60 type split. So we've done as much as we can to try to help bring this idea of realignment, better access, different access into Allegan, and try to help you guys, try to fulfill some of these 2 decades long of thinking and planning and trying to grow and develop a different atmosphere down here. Will the department benefit? Yes, but what does that mean? That means all of the department's customers will benefit, which is all of the city of Allegan, and all the surrounding area of, the county of Allegan and everywhere else that traverses through here, the industry that uses these routes that go through. It's really not about, it's really the best solution that we can do and take the moment of opportunity where we're here spending money and doing things to get it right. So that's been our goal, our thrust in this thing. The reason why we've kind of behind the scenes argued and talked about, how do we get to this solution? I'm not trying to put on a hard sell. What I'm trying to do is tell you there's a lot of passion that's went into this for these 2 guys. And we're trying to make sure that you guys have all the information you need to make a decision. This is not an easy one. We know, we've been in communities where we've implemented roundabouts before. These are not a straightforward solution. It is a change in how, the community operates around its town, and it's an identity changer too. Positive and negative sometimes, especially in the beginning. So it takes good support, good outreach. We're ready to do that. We have the time available for us to deliver a project in '24 that we can come down here and communicate. We can talk to residents, we can talk about traffic patterns, we can talk about businesses in the area that have to traverse this and what they can do. All that stuff is ahead of us. But we do need a resolution. Thomas is right about the time frame for the agreement. We usually put that together. We've got to go through our environmental clearances. We have to go through our own vetting of our engineering operations committee to approve a roundabout. The MDOT does not, at the leadership level, does not just, let, Grand Rapids TSC come down here and sell you a roundabout and go build roundabouts. It's a decision that leadership holds to themselves and says, hey, we want to make sure all the steps are in place. We want to make sure all the operations, all the communications, all the community investment is in place, and that's what this resolution is all about, is to make sure that, you guys understand what it is that we're doing and this change that we're going to do and how much of a positive benefit it's going to bring to the area versus how much, consternation that it could bring. We're going to give you all the data, we're going to give you all the research, we're going to do all the work through that design process to deliver a job that I think everybody can be proud of, and, hopefully, something that will be kind of a little bit of a different identity thing for the community. I know the others that have been put in place have done that, and I don't see a reason why that can't be done here. So that's all the background, that's all the internal discussion we've had as a department to give you guys. And rest assured, if there's any other questions we can answer, help with, we're certainly able to do that.
Well, thank you, and thank you again. I can sense the passion, so I appreciate it, and also you've been very gracious in reworking these and continuing the conversation, so very much appreciated.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. So any other things come up and you guys are considering this, if there's any other feedback we can get through staff to you guys to help, anything other quirky things that come up. One more thing I thought of about the question about, the radius here coming around the pedestrians. So if we didn't have the bypass lane, what would that traffic have to do? That traffic would have to go into the roundabout and then impact two crossings. So what we're trying to do with that bypass lane is both be efficient and not run them through the middle of the big roundabout, but also it cuts down two different crossings for pedestrian use. So we'll look in design and try to put that optimum crossing, for that bypass lane. But I think the idea of the bypass lane does two things. It kind of absorbs some of that capacity for that major turn out of the middle of the roundabout for all the other turns that have to happen. And it also cuts down the number of crossings for the pedestrians. So just a little aside, I was thinking myself back here.
Okay, thank
Thanks
you.
a lot, take care.
Thank you.
Okay, council, so look for that resolution on February the 14th, and again, that would be to go with the roundabout as the option. So if you have any questions, concerns in the meantime, make sure you reach out to Joel so he can get any answers for you before the 14th. Okay, next up, we have a discussion regarding the City of Allegan's public communication. Staff?
Sure, we're coming up quickly, so I'm gonna be very, to the end of the study session, and we have another item to discuss. The purpose of this agenda item is just to let you know that staff heard you from the strategic planning weekend, that even though you didn't prioritize your goals, I would be shocked if better communication to the residents isn't a top priority. So we've already begun reaching out and trying to figure out how this would work. I reached out to other city managers on my manager listserv, got a plethora of newsletters that are used in other communities. That is in your report. You see ones that are very detailed and almost magazine-like, like Plymouth, and then North Muskegon's, which is 2 pages. And then Parker reminded me that when I showed up here in 2017, we started a newsletter, a biannual one. I think that, once every, twice a year. And you have an example of that one, and plus a newsletter from 2015 that the city did as well, so you can compare and see the direction we have gone with newsletters. This is all to say, yeah, we will work something together to get a newsletter system going. We are in contact with SMS That's a text messaging services, just to get some prices out there. Councilmember Hands sent me another service this afternoon, I believe. So we are, looking at those areas. And then the third one is, I really like the idea of getting a custom, and by custom, I just mean a 10 by 10 tent with a City of Allegan logo on it, so it pops, this is a city, tent, and having council members, staff it during community events, so residents can, if they have questions, they can stop and talk to council members. Senior staff can also staff that as well, because we have a lot of answers or residents have a lot of questions for us. We may not have the answers, but, they may want to talk to, City Hall representatives as well. So that's the direction that we're kind of going. I understand you have not prioritized this as your top goal or one of your top goals for this upcoming year. It's just based on what I was hearing during that conversation, it just kept bubbling up. I'm thinking this is when it's going to be. So I wanted to get this in front of you early so you can see the direction we're going. If you have any comments, questions, we can discuss, at a later time. We're going to want to talk about the frequency of a newsletter. The SMS stuff can be used for more than just a newsletter. If we have a boil water advisory, on Cutler Street, we could use it for that. But the newsletter would be more regular information. So we can have more discussion on this at a later time, but I wanted to just let you know, we heard you, or at least we think we heard you, and we started diving into it, right away.
Thank you, Joel, and staff. I mean, after it was reiterated 7 times, I'm definitely something that I think we're all pretty concerned with, so I appreciate you jumping into that right away. Any other comments or questions regarding this, council, for staff? I know we can discuss later, but I think this is a great start, so thank you. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. So next we have a discussion regarding 211.5 Trowbridge Street. Staff?
All right, so this past week, during your strategic planning, so 2 weeks ago, I formally introduced the idea of finding a new use for 211.5 Trowbridge Street, which is the room behind the Regent Theater off the alley. I shared with council how we got here. So currently the Regent Arcade is located there. The Regent Arcade is a city-initiated idea. I would even go to a point where up until this past May, April, it was a city-run idea. So when we first started, it was open 7 days a week, staffed by Regent Theater employees who are city employees. It would open 1 hour before, and then during the length of the movie, the 1 hour after the movie. The goal or the objective or the hope was to bring more foot traffic downtown, and specifically more foot traffic into the Regent Theater. As stated in your report, the Regent Theater has never made money. We've always lost money year in, year out on the theater. When we have capital improvement projects, we lose a significant amount of money. Within the past 3 years, without the capital improvement projects, we were losing on average about $9,000 to $10,000 a year on that wonderful building. It opened end of May 2019. It was staffed by city Regent Theater employees. COVID hit in the early part of 2020, and we had to shut it down. During that time, that 9 months it was open, I think we lost about $17,000. So when we project that out over the course of the year, we're in the mid-20s that we were going to lose on just with staffing costs back there. We thought people would buy concession stand items back there. They did not buy concession stand items. We thought we'd have more people going to the movie. We did not have more people going to the movie. So I had to make a decision at that moment that we couldn't keep staffing it once it reopened again. This continuous loss is just not financially smart for the city. So talked to the owner of the pinball machines, which is Small Town Amusements, and Matt Adams is in the audience this evening. Talked to him, and I said, if we're going to keep this thing open, it has to be volunteer staffed. And so we rewrote our contract with Small Town Amusements where in addition to providing and maintaining the machines, they would have to coordinate the volunteer staffing. And so that's been operating, next slide, no, keep it there. So that's been operating that way, you know, through the, I would say, the loosening of the COVID restrictions once arcades could open up again. It's been operating that way, Friday and Saturday, 5 to 10, and then special events, people reserve them, the spaces for birthday parties, et cetera. Through the work of Small Town Amusements and, you know, Matt Adams, really promoting the number of reservations there, you know, reserving it for $25, stuff like that. We've allowed, or we've appreciated Small Town Amusements taking that lead and not having us worry about it. We were paying for the electric, we were paying for, you know, the utilities, upkeep of the building, et cetera. But letting Small Town take over the operations, you know, freed up staff to focus on other things. And so recently we have a request from another small business that would like to occupy that space. They would pay us a lease rate. It would be a 1-year lease, $500 per month, and it would be a tabletop board game. They would be open, you can go to the next slide, sorry. Tuesdays through Saturdays, 1 to 8, and they would like to be opened May 2022, but they'd like to be into that space by April so they can start getting it ready. Everything inside that space, outside the fixtures and the restroom, which is the toilet and the hand washing sink, and then the mop room that's adjoined it, the restroom, and the oil pump is owned by Small Town Amusements. So the pinball machines, the gaming, the posters, the wall art, et cetera, is all, you know, owned by Small Town Amusements. The cabinet, the counter, I view that as a permanent, you know, installation that the city owns. We paid for that as part of our rehab there. So, as I mentioned to council, we have a discussion that has to happen. A decision needs to be, you know, made. Matt is here if you have any questions. Matt and I have talked about this probably a handful of times over the past month and a half when I first got the inquiry from Hordes of Dragons, or Horde of Dragons. And so we had a more serious conversation this past Thursday, and then again, a little bit on Saturday, but not much. Full disclosure, Matt and I are friends. Our social circles intertwine, so when I say we have discussions over the weekends, we're usually doing other stuff together at that time as well, so. And we also golf together in the summertime as well.
Thank you, Joel. Matt, did you want to address council at all?
I do have a prepared statement, but in the interest of time, what I think I'll do is send this to council.
Okay.
But just, yeah, be available to answer questions. I think Joel covered the background pretty well. One point that I did want to make, and I think Joel covered this was never started for my personal gain in any state. And really, the reason the arcade was started was to bring an evening attraction to Allegan, to provide entertainment for downtown Allegan, and another reason to bring people into Allegan. And I think we've been successful in doing that. I have a lot of data in here because that's my nature, but rather than going through that again, I'll send this to council for your review and consideration. It's just unfortunate. I think that if this is the end of the Region Arcade, I'm disappointed. I'm discouraged because I've been here, you know, I went to city council meetings back when we were at the Griswold after, you know, I'm still consider myself a fairly new city resident. But part of the reason that I was excited about starting this was because of the progress that city was making. And I think city staff and city council, you know, we put some great programs, when I say we, I've been there on a volunteer basis, but we put some great programs in place. And just in the downtown area in general, just the development has been tremendous, and that's been exciting. Unfortunately, COVID has curtailed a lot of things, and this is one of them. And that's unfortunate. But it can't, to be honest with you, it can't continue to operate the way it has. It's been challenging for me. You know, I stepped in, I told Joel I wasn't gonna let COVID close the arcade. I
didn't want to see that be the end of it. So that's why I stepped in, but I've spent virtually every Friday and/or Saturday night since May of 2021 at the arcade. Had help from friends, family, other volunteers, but it's quite an investment, and that's in addition to my full-time job
Yeah.
and my other business ventures and my other volunteer initiatives. So it's a little taxing. So there are changes that need to be made. I have other ideas. And again, I'll just send this to you so that you can read through those also.
I do want to just add on real quick. The running joke in our household is we're pretty sure Matt's a vampire because the gentleman does not sleep, and his passion for this town, even though he is from the Flint area, raised his family in Plainwell, has been extremely beneficial to city staff. Hands down, Matt and his wife Deb, without hesitation, are #1 volunteers. This year for New Year's Eve, we didn't need volunteers for New Year's Eve. We're setting up, Matt and Deb are doing a typical walk around downtown, and sure enough, see us setting up, because you guys need help? I'm like, no, we don't need help. In about 4 minutes, I called Matt, are you still downtown? Because we need help. And Matt came down and helped Ryan hang all the lights on the stage for the countdown clock, because I needed someone who was 6'5" that could, help us get that stuff done. As Matt mentioned, he has a full-time job. And then he has a handful of, I'm not gonna call them side hustles, there's just side things he does, that he just wants to keep contributing to the community. You talk about edging all the sidewalks. It's always great when I go play poker with Matt and my poker buddies up in Allendale, and they're like, what's your DPW doing if Matt's edging sidewalks? I'm like, okay, guys, we're here just to hang out as friends, but you don't see that in other communities where a resident says, I'm gonna lead the charge to, beautify your sidewalks. So, it's been, really, really a pleasure, to have Matt support city staff that way.
Well, thank you, Joel and Matt. You're a gem. I mean,
Well, thank you. I'm not
and I
looking
know
for the pat
that
on the back, but this is,
this is
again.
a very difficult conversation for all of us to have, because you have invested so much of your time and energy into the arcade, but also into the city, and nobody wants.
Sure, and,
To have
that was, part of I wanted my opening line to be, I'm here to support your decision, whatever that might be, but I want you to hear me say, change needs to happen, and change is good. I had in here about the sidewalk edging, and I know the city has suffered from a financial standpoint, but I've also put my own, I've invested thousands of dollars into the arcade, hundreds of hours into the arcade. It's a passion, but that's, one of my oldest passions that I have is pinball, and it's been exciting for me to share that with the community. The last 6 classes have been filled that we've had, and the couple families that have gone through and done that, that's exactly what I want to see happen there. But there are other ways I can do that too. So I want you guys to be able to hear that as well.
Council, did you have any questions for staff or for Matt?
Just reiterating what you said, you are a gem. You and Deb both are a huge blessing to this community, and, we love you guys and all that you've done. And this is a really difficult conversation because, kind of what's been said is you dance with the one that brung you, right? And you guys have been there when we needed you, and now we're gonna push you aside. But there are realities of the world, and so it is a really difficult conversation, and
Sure.
we wanna support you guys, even if it's, regardless of what decision gets made here, we wanna support you guys, and I don't want you to feel like you're getting tossed to the curb because there's a bigger battle deal.
And I appreciate that, and that when I was giving those personal updates to city council in the beginning, that was just because I was excited about it, and I appreciated the opportunity. And it's been exciting. It's been a good experience for me. But yeah, I recognize their financial responsibilities that the city and city council has for this space. And it's just such a cool space, and that's the hard part too, is the overwhelming positive thing is the feedback that we get from people that walk in there, and they're saying, oh, this is so cool, and it is a great space, you know, it would be a good partnership with the theater under probably some different circumstances. And it, you know, it just hasn't worked out that way.
So council, it is a difficult decision and discussion, but it's one that we do have to have. So I'm just going to open the floor to see what people are thinking and how you'd like to move forward with this request to rent the Regent space. We had a short discussion at the meeting, the strategic planning meeting. And as much as I love Matt in the arcade, again, I do understand that we do need to start making some money on these regional assets. That's one of our goals.
Go ahead, Dave.
I do want to be careful when we say we want to make money on our regional assets. I think the goal is to get the most value out of our regional assets. And that's what's, I think, important to consider. That's one of the things that struck me as I thought about this later was, I'd ask the question, like, does it matter what business goes in there? And I think the answer is yes. I think when you've got a public space, the way you measure the value of that public space comes down to the asset that it provides to the community. So if I were to set aside the rent part of it, because that's $6,000 a year, which, yeah, okay, that's a good amount of money, but I think you really need to look at the investment that you're making for the community. And one of the things I thought about was, is the Dragon of the Horde Hobbies shop, that's an unproven thing. It could be something that brings in as many people as the Regent Arcade. I think for me, it's almost like you've got two reasonably good options there. Dragon of the Hordes is a little bit more of an unknown. I think what we've seen, what I've heard about the arcade is that it's coming to a point where it's successful. If you're bringing in 20 people on a night into downtown Allegan for a city our size, that's a really good thing, especially if people from outside the community start coming in and saying, oh yeah, I went to Allegan to that arcade. And it takes a little while to build that sort of understanding that that place is there and people, the word of mouth that brings people to that kind of place. I mean, full disclosure, this may come as a big shock to everybody, but I've played Magic the Gathering since I was like 9 years old. So I've spent my fair share of time in hobby shops. Now, Magic the Gathering tournaments, the big ones need a much larger space than what we have there. But a hobby shop can support like a general number of people. I don't know what model they're using there, if it's tabletop games, if they've got that all mapped out that it can work. But that's a new business. That's a LLC that's still forming. They may or may not make it for the next 5 years there. I don't know how long we would, I don't know what things we're putting in place to ensure that we've got a good investment of our public utility or our public asset towards that. There's probably not a lot that we can do there because they're a business, they're gonna pay us rent, they're gonna be open when they wanna be open, they're gonna fail or not by the rules of business. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm really thinking about what that public asset's value is, more so than the cost at this point.
Anyone else have anything to say? I mean, Matt, can I ask what your intentions are with the arcade? You had mentioned that it was a little beating you down, or I'm putting words into your mouth with that, but every Friday and Saturday night for months. Is this something that you are looking to continue? Have you thought of moving or closing shop? I mean, what are your thoughts around that?
I haven't thought of closing shop. I was just thinking, though, as Dave was speaking, if I came out and said, I would give my blessing for you to move to Port of Dragons, would that make a difference to you? And it might not. But to Dave's point, just to give you a little bit of data that I have here also that I was gonna share, our average traffic is about just short of 50 people a weekend, so 25 people a night, so you're pretty close to being right on. That varies pretty greatly though. We were well over that during the summer months. We've been well under that in the fall. Festive Fridays, the month of December was our best month ever. We had, we were 70 to 80 people a weekend during festive Fridays. Special event nights are huge, traffic generators, July 3 Jubilee. Again, festive Fridays, food truck rally, we opened for a couple of those, just because we had so many people downtown. But yeah, as far as the number of people we're bringing into Allegan, some people we have come in are coming because they're going to the movie, and that's kind of their tradition now. They stop in to the arcade beforehand, or come afterwards. But we do have people that come from out of town too. In the summer months, we have people, that are from Chicago that are out at Lake Allegan, and, they come into town to go to Tantric or whatever, and then they discover the arcade. But I still feel like, like your point of getting the business off the ground and getting it running, never really happened. I mean, we were open for 10 months before we had to shut down for COVID. And now we've been open for 8 months since then. So it's been hard to get that momentum. But I'm here to tell you, part of my discussion is that in the arcade industry, it's a labor of love. It's not an income generating business. It needs to be really partnered with another business. And I've been seeking that out since we acknowledged the fact that the concessions were not going to cover labor costs. I haven't aggressively been seeking anyone, and there are options out there right now in town, but nothing that's concrete right now or totally feasible.
I'll share that the biggest risk that comes to mind is that we pass on Horde of the Dragon, and then your love labor fizzles in the next 3 months or exceeds what, you just can't keep going anymore. And then we're out. Like I said, they're two pretty good options, two good models for that space, but.
Like if you did something crazy like bought an ice cream store too.
Right.
Right, yeah.
And, part of my reasoning behind that was really to partner that with the arcade. But that's not happening right now either. And it's nothing that's gonna happen in the immediate future. As I think about Horde of Dragons, and I don't know a lot about that business, but with Tardy's just opening across the street, I mean, I think you're starting to, maybe get a little niche there of, consumers that would say, hey, Allegan's the hot spot for this. And that's really what I wanted to see for the arcade. Our space is a little bit too small for that, but we're a small town.
So we do need to offer some direction for staff here.
I'm currently in probably the direction of re-renting it out, only from the standpoint of I would like the region to be more sustainable. If I could have you move the pinball machines here up in the front lobby, that'd be great, but I'd get no work out of Joel, so I thought about that a while. I'm like, yeah, they would fit right
Joel's
up
never
here.
at his desk.
He's never at his desk, he's always at the pinball machine. But yeah, it's, could it survive on its own? Possibly, but like Matt's saying, it really needs to be partnered with a business or something else that is where that real income comes from, because unless if people are willing to pay enough money to play pinball for a while, it kind of doesn't self-sustain unless you kind of got that partnership with a restaurant or another activity. That's why BAM and places like that have done that. They've gone from just bowling to bowling and games and other things, because bowling wasn't cutting it on its own anymore, and they had to kind of diversify out, and I don't know if that would ever be possible right there.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here, Matt. This is a really tough decision because of our friendship and because of what you guys have done. But I mean, when I just kind of take emotion out of it, I feel like we've got. I don't know how I say to the residents of the city, I turned away $6,000 in a city that's really got a lot of. We run a pretty tight budget, and yeah, so as much as it pains me to say, I think that we should move in that direction.
Teresa?
And I think I was one of the ones at our Saturday strategic that said, are we really being fair to Matt, for everything he's done for our city, to just kick him out to the street, And so I am very pleased that you are here as well, Matt, to give us your input. With that being said, I think Matt's feelings, we don't really have another option other than to collect the $6,000 a year. And as long as Matt's fine with it and doesn't kick us to the curb, so.
Well, and I appreciate everyone's concern, don't get me wrong, but I also don't feel like the city owes me anything. That's where I stand. I mean, again, the arcade was a city idea, it was brought to me. I took it over this year, or 2021, and ran with it to keep it running. But again, I don't feel like the city owes me anything.
Bill, did you have anything to add?
Just to thank Matt, there are not words out there to thank for what you have done for our community, Matt. I had a terrible time with this as a person, as a humanitarian. I couldn't kick you out of there for the life of me. Miss going across the street and pestering you.
Well, we don't have popcorn.
But I know it, that's the other irritating thing. I have my afternoon snacks gone. As a business person, I would have loved to have a place that I did not have to pay rent for. And as being here, I got no choice, so. As a humanitarian, keep it up, mister.
I'll find a way.
I am ashamed of myself to see someone like myself that has lived in Allegan his whole life, and to see someone like you come in here and turn us upside down and do everything that you do. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart.
Mike?
Everything that everybody said.
Okay.
Hate to see you go, but I like a little bit of income.
Thank you for being you and for being so supportive and understanding as well, Matt. I mean, that's definitely helps a little bit with the decision, but not much. Very, very hard.
This is our worst decision,
know,
our hardest decision that we've made.
Absolutely. So it looks like the majority is saying to move forward with Horde of
Yes.
Dragons.
So the next step is at your February 14th meeting, I'll have a lease for council to approve. Since it is a lease, you have to approve it just like you did with the two here at City Hall. All right?
All right, thank you. Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome, thank you. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for being here tonight.
Also send this to you so you can
Please do.
review. And read about all the other arcades that have opened in West Michigan since.
You started a trend, or this,
Yes.
Allegan started a trend with you. Next up, we have just a quick review of the monthly revenue and expenditure report. Did anyone have any questions for Tracy? I see she's here tonight. Hi, Tracy. I do appreciate getting these still, so thank you so much for putting that in our hands. No questions, comments? Okay. Next, we have a review of the council agenda. Did anyone see anything on the agenda that needs correcting, or are there any additions for tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none. We'll go ahead and adjourn. It's 6:59. I could use a small break myself, so how about we reconvene at 7:05? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and call the Allegan City Council regular meeting to order. Could we get a roll call, please, Michaela?
Yep. Councilmember Zeter. Here. Councilmember Byrd.
Here.
Councilmember Hands.
Present.
Councilmember Redding.
Here?
Councilmember Morgan. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Galloway.
Here.
Mayor Andrus.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, we have Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone could please rise and join me in stating the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we have agenda item number 4, which is approval of agenda. Under 4A, we have approval of the regular council meeting agenda for January 24th, 2022. We did discuss this at study session. Since there were no additions or corrections, could I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, under agenda item 5, approval of minutes, we have 5A, which is approval of the study session minutes from January 10th, 2022 council meeting. Council, did you see any additions or corrections to the study session minutes? Staff, did you receive anything from council? No? Okay, could I get a motion to approve, please?
So move.
Second.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
I will abstain because I wasn't there.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Next, we have 5B, which is an approval of the regular meeting minutes from January 10th. Same question, council. Any additions or corrections? Staff, any notification from anybody? No? Could I get a motion to approve?
And so move.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
And I will abstain from that also.
Thank you, Mike. Under 5C, we have an approval of the strategic planning minutes from January 14th, 2022's council meeting. This was our department head presentations. Are there any additions or corrections, council? Seeing none, could I get a motion, please?
So move.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. And last, we have 5D, which is an approval of the strategic planning minutes from January 15th council meeting. Any additions or corrections, council? The only question I had, staff, is whether we should put a section of that we were going over goals, because we just had like the presentations from our committee members. What if we should add in there that we had a discussion about
Yeah, it looks like
last
we
year's
moved
goals?
right to adjournment. Yeah.
Yep, I can add that.
Okay. So could I get a motion, please, to approve the minutes with a correction?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have agenda item number 9, which is public comment. This is public comment for items that are not on tonight's agenda. I will invite any public up to the podium. If you have any comment to make, just state your name, address, and we have a 3-minute time limit.
I believe we sent a letter in for the PAC, Allegan.
Oh.
Okay.
You were.
Next agenda.
Yep, and you're actually on the agenda, so if you want to make your way up to the podium, I'll welcome you up.
First, I introduce myself. I'm Ben Taylor. I'm the committee chairman for the PAC here in Allegan. I believe I just emailed you, Mayor, about the crossover that we're planning on having on February 20th. We have 5 fifth graders that are ready to cross over to the troop, which is outstanding. It's our 2nd year in a row we've had that many. It's also our biggest group we've had in the last couple of years. We're also planning on crossing over 6, maybe 7 next year. So this is really exciting for us as a PAC. We have a lot of energetic adults who've been working really hard with these kids. And so we have a very big ceremony. It's called the Arrow Light Crossover Ceremony. And for those who are not familiar with scouting, I'll just take a second to explain that. Cub Scouts is the elementary age of scouting, so kindergartners through fifth grade. And fifth graders are our arrow lights, or we've been calling them in the past the Webelos 2. But they've already earned their Webelo rank. And now they're working on their Arrow of Light, which is equivalent to the Boy Scouts Eagle Scout. So they're working on that, and they're already done. They're ready for the crossover. But this year is a little special for us because we actually, out of those 5, instead of them all crossing over to the Allegan troop like they did last year, we actually have one that's crossing over to the Payable troop. We have 2 young girls, which are our first girls we've ever crossed over. They're going to the Allegan girls troop. And then we have 2 young men that are going to the Allegan troop. So those 3 troops are going to be with us for our celebration to cross them over so that they can go on to their next adventure, which is scouting. We're no longer called Boy Scouts of America for the obvious reason we have girls now. So, but we are still referenced as BSA scouting, but, so it's a very exciting year for us. And because we have so many people, we did plan on using the Allegan United Methodist Church, but there's not a lot of room. And so we were hoping that we can use the Griswold Auditorium for this crossover, but we're also asking if we can get a lower rate to rent that for one day. We're hoping maybe if this is successful that we make this a yearly thing with the Griswold.
Okay.
So, well, another reason for asking for a lower rate is because of COVID. Our popcorn sales have been down. 2021, we did all right, not as well as we did in 2019, but 2020 we had a non-existent popcorn sales. So we're trying to recover from the fees or the income from that for the pack. So we're on a very tight budget this year. So if any help from the city would be great. We would really greatly appreciate it. So, and I hope you can still make it. I see you're on crutches. I hope you're okay.
Oh, I am okay,
Okay,
thank you. Yep.
perfect.
And I definitely plan on being wherever you guys end up having that crossover, so hopefully that'll be at the
Mayor
Griswold.
I'm sorry, not Mayor Gibson. Chief Gibson said he'll be there. Chief Brink from the fire department said he'll be there, and Mary Whiteford, she'll be there as always. She always does a nice, great presentation. So we're really excited about this. So.
And how many people are you expecting, Ben, if I may ask, do you know a rough estimate?
Last year we had about 30 people. We're expecting more this year because of the additional troops. They're gonna be here. So usually when the troops do come, it's a whole little ceremony. We have a little bridge and they cross over to the welcoming troops. So, you know, the troops could have anywhere from 4 to close to a dozen representing their troop. So it could be almost double than last year.
And we do have your request letter in front of us here, or we got that in our packet. You're looking to use the banquet room?
Yes.
Is that the Marilla Lounge? No?
The banquet room is the
Downstairs?
lower level.
Okay,
Lower level,
okay.
yes. Yep.
Thank you. I wasn't quite sure what we were calling. Okay,
Perfect. Well, thank you for
Thank
letting
you.
me speak.
thank you. Thank you for speaking. Staff, did you have anything to add?
I just want to point out, again, the banquet room is the lower level of the Griswold. The standard rental rate for that space is $125 an hour. And the request before you, I think, in talking, Ryan, communicating with the scouts, you guys are asking for a flat rate of $100 as the reduced rate, so.
And how many hours are you looking to use that, Ben? For 5? Okay, so we've got like 12 to 5 on here. Does that include like setup?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Council?
Joel, what did we do the outside pavilion for just recently? What did we discount that down?
It was for the music, right? The good times at the gazebo.
Yeah, the good times at the gazebo, is that what you're referencing?
Yeah.
Councilmember, yeah. I believe that was,
Zero.
yeah, it was free of charge, yeah.
Yeah.
Typically it's 25.
Mm-hmm, correct.
Yeah, typically it's 25. And then council, made it 0.
Oh, yeah, that one was 0.
Peter?
They're only asking for like a reduced rate of 100. I find it's a community event. It's not asking, I guess, a whole lot. We still have, I think, on our next study session to discuss actually coming up with some standards that make it easier for staff, so we can just say, these are our standards we want to apply. We're not there yet. We got to do that next study session. Asking for $25 off, I don't think that's a whole lot.
This is a flat rate, though, for the entire time.
Not
so-
hourly.
Yeah.
Yep, not hourly.
So normally it's $125 an hour, or
Yeah,
just
125 an hour.
a minimum number of hours, or not on that?
I think there's a 6 hour, there's a combination, 6 hours.
Yeah.
Do you have that number?
Yeah, so you could do 6 hours at $7.50.
Yeah, there it is.
$750. And the additional hourly rate after that is $50, whereas just the regular rate per hour is
Not 125.
If the pack or the scouts or whatever their terminology they go by is requesting 100, it's staff's recommendation that you accept that.
Yep, I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't 100 an hour.
Yes.
Flat rate. Okay. I'm in support of that. Does anyone have any other comments? Roger, no?
Nope, I'm supportive,
Dave,
I'm
Bill?
supportive of it also.
Yeah, I think it's really important to start thinking about how we get value out of our regional assets, and I think this is, it's better than jury duty. So I think it's good.
That's my bread and butter.
Wait a minute, that's Dolores' job.
That's my job.
Right.
Okay, so if I could get a motion, please, to.
I would love the motion, as an Eagle Scout from Troop 607 in St. Joe. I think it's a great program. I know it's evolving, and changing, yearly probably at this point. But to follow staff's recommendations and.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion, council? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. So I will see you there. Yeah, thanks so much.
I'm gonna hang out for a bit because I've still got a while before I gotta pick up some other scouts.
Okay, you are welcome to stay.
Thank you.
Yep. So moving down to agenda item number 11, we have reports from our boards, commissions, and city offices. Under 11A, our city boards, commissions, and area agencies. We have 11A.1, which is a report from the DDA and Planning Commission joint January meeting. Parker, you want to take that?
I can. I know typically the council members that are there. I know
I
my
saw
name
your
was
name on
listed.
there.
Yeah.
I was just going to be like, go for
Well,
it, Parker.
I put your name on the slide, Delora, Mayor Andrus. So
Oh.
if you would like to take that torch, feel free, and then I'll jump in if needed.
Sure. So the DDA and Planning Commission did meet together, and that is to fulfill a requirement to continue to be a redevelopment-ready community through the MML, so, or MEDC, excuse me. So we met and we discussed the uses under our C1, which is our commercial downtown district. That was the majority of what we did, so we just went through each use, and both committees determined whether to keep something as a regular use or a special use, or to remove things. So I know that we had Alex mention one thing that was a little contentious, but he was the only one in favor of that, so. He was the only one. Yeah, and we went over the upcoming events, the DDA. We just kind of went through those really quickly, so I think that was pretty much all we did. Okay.
One question. Did we get like that compiled list from the DDA and planning? Because I see that in the minutes that they're supposed to send in the minutes to Parker and compile them for our strategic. I know we had the presentation, but I don't know if we actually saw a list.
Yeah, you have not seen that list, but that's something I can get to you guys.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
And that'll go through planning to make any changes to the zoning area. And we are also in discussion right now to change some of the boundaries for some of those zoning districts, so. Okay, next we have a report from the Public Spaces Commission. Teresa.
Okay, we did meet on January 12th. It's a long time ago to go off my memory, so I'm gonna look at what's written here. Mel Brummel was supposed to come and give us an update on the mountain bike and hiking trail. Turns out he was sick, so he did not attend, but Joel did tell us that the city staff is working diligently to secure easement. Kind of Michaela, that was put on Michaela's plate. That is all we need to, I guess, to get this moving forward further. And then Paula asked that the cross-country trail at the sports complex get a second pass in order to widen the trail. So they have made the sports complex trail available for cross-country skiing, and they apparently had made one trail, one swipe, and it wasn't wide enough. So she asked for two. Joel was gonna touch with Doug on that, and I think it's probably been taken care of, but as far as the cemetery goes, Parker gave us a list of rules that he dug into deeply and tried to come up with kind of a compromise from what we heard before, other cemeteries that he had read, and those are gonna come out and be presented to council sometime in a near meeting or study session.
Yeah, the plan is to take the notes that I received from the Public Spaces Commission after presenting that list, refine that list, present it to them at their next meeting, and then with their recommendation, bring it to you guys after that Public Spaces meeting, so.
If you all remember, we talked about this last year, I think it was. And there was some deviations between council and what Public Spaces thought, and we never really finished hyping it up. So the goal is to get new signs out at the cemetery that will make most people happy, and we can utilize our cemetery like it should be. Guess, we did talk about the community garden, maybe what to do there, right? Some of the people on the public spaces was talking about the lights downtown. They were disappointed that our Christmas lights got turned off because they loved them. Wanted them up longer, at least through January, and Joel kind of blew the Christmas spirit there. He didn't want all the lights up, so. And then, yeah.
We kept them up through January 7th, which I think is the end of the Christian Christmas holiday. It's when the wise men showed up, so I was like, we kept it up through the Christmas holiday.
Okay, well, some of the ladies weren't happy with you.
Nope, they were
That's
not.
okay. And then we did discuss about the relocation of the Veterans Memorial there. Kind of shared with them what we had heard at the last council meeting. And Joel obviously is still working on that, and we're gonna look at different options possibly, or keep moving forward with that to see what we can do there. So,
Yeah.
that was about it.
Thanks, Teresa. Next, we have 11B, which is our Finance Department. Under 11B.1, we have a request to approve accounts payable and payroll.
Mayor, I overstepped, or I guess I forgot all about, I attended via Zoom the Wellhead committee meeting. There's a lot of information. I'm new to all that, so I was hoping that Doug would be here, but I forgot all about it.
Okay,
But we did attend that.
okay, wonderful.
If there's any questions, I can try to answer them. It was beyond some of the stuff that I even thought I would even think about, so.
Okay, thanks, Mike. We'll go back to finance then, 11B.1. Teresa, approval of the accounts payable and payroll.
Okay, we had accounts payable in the amount of $377,166.08. Payroll in the amount of $106,741.35. For a total of $483,907.43. I make a motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. Are there any questions or comments, council? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11B.2, which is a request to approve our first quarter budget adjustments. Tracy?
Pretty much the major things that are on here are transfers over from the previous fiscal year that didn't get spent, that needed to be moved over because they weren't budgeted for this year. So they're just transfers over from the previous fiscal year, and pretty much just anything that has come up that you guys would be aware of in any of your council meetings that you would approve. The casino grant, spending that, and then, yeah, the other things are just rollovers from the previous fiscal year, I believe. And if you have any questions on any of the specific numbers that are in there, you can ask away.
Were there any questions, council?
Forgive me for not remembering casino grant?
For
The
drone,
casino
wasn't
gave
it?
the police department $7,000.
Yeah, 7,158 for the drone,
I got you.
Yep,
which has a heat, what I'm gonna call a heat temperature reader. So when it's in the sky, they can see heat reflection in, which means humans.
Yeah, okay.
Are there any other questions, council? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion to approve the first quarter budget adjustments, please?
Support.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, say no. Motion carries. And next, we have 11B.3, which is a request to approve second quarter budget adjustments. Tracy?
yep, just being halfway through the year, these adjustments are adjusting other things that were after first quarter that have come to council. Nothing, usually second and third quarter are pretty straightforward, not a whole lot of adjustments, so there's nothing real crazy on revenues or the expenditures for this. It's just adjusting to what's actually in there and what you guys have approved in the second quarter.
Thank you. Any questions?
So
Mike?
I guess in my world, we usually attack them a quarter at a time. Why are we doing two tonight?
So, the first quarter budget adjustments are always delayed because I wait until we get our audit back. So that happened in September, October, November was when they came and presented
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, it was November when we got the audit back.
Yep.
Right.
And so then, I was off for 2 weeks at Christmas, so I had the first quarter budget adjustments done for the
For-
end
for-
of December, but I
Correct.
was on vacation, so Joel just decided to wait. So that just pretty much time off and just timing and items that were on the agenda that were,
Okay, just,
yep, no, they were done.
Straight up a timing issue.
Yep.
yep.
Thanks, Mike. Are there any other questions, council? Okay, seeing none, could I get a motion, please, to approve the second quarter budget adjustments?
So move to approve resolution 22-02.
Can we get a support? It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Next, we move down to 11F, which is our city manager and city clerk agenda item. Under 11F.1, we have a request to approve a memorandum of understanding with the Community Action Agency. Staff?
Sure, so, Community Action Agency of Allegan County reached out to us, asking us to engage into an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, which will allow Community Action Agency to provide direct payment assistance for household water utility accounts that are past due, so they're in the arrears or they're disconnected already, for low-income households. So if someone goes behind due on us, they say they can't pay, we'll ask a series of questions, make sure they're, low-income household. If they qualify, we'll send them to Community Action House. They go through the process, or Community Action Agency. They go through the process over there, and then Community Action Agency will make a direct payment into our system to bring them current. The MOU, if when you reviewed it, you'll see there's a lot of requirements. Most of them are stuff we already do, like we don't discriminate. we're not gonna provide, people's private information to the public or say, this person's taking advantage of this program, et cetera. The one thing in there that we don't currently do is we will agree not to shut the person or turn the person's water off within 90 days after receiving a payment. So the purpose of this program is to make sure low-income people have running water. I mean, that's a health and safety kind of issue. And so we are agreeing to, keep their water on for 90 days. They will still accumulate a bill. They will still accumulate, any fees or penalties that come with not paying it, but we won't shut them off at that, at that time until after 90 days. And then, if they don't make a payment or work out another payment with Community Action Agency, then they will be shut off at that time. But that was the one thing that was atypical of our current practices.
Thank you, Joel. I think this is wonderful. So I
So
appreciate
does
that,
staff.
that the city is willing to partner with them for that. Is there any questions for staff, council? Okay. Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve the Memorandum of Understanding with Community Action Agency?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, we have 11F.2, which is a request to approve our downtown Allegan events for 2022. Staff?
Let you speak.
Sure. So the, still referred to as the Positively Allegan Board, the nonprofit board that oversees our downtown Allegan events, met last week, Wednesday, to review and approve the slate of events that you have in your agenda packet tonight. Begins with Rollin' on the River on June 10th and continues each Friday through the summertime, ending in August, followed by Bridge Fest on the second Saturday of June. The Fork in the Road food truck rallies on Monday nights, once again, continuing now this year until the end of August rather than the end of July, still on those Monday nights. July through Jubilee on the 3rd of July, and then falling into, well, we've got sidewalk sales and then Small Business Saturday in November, and then Festive Fridays each Friday in December before Christmas, and finally New Year's Eve on December 31st. So that was the list of events presented to the Positively Allegan Board, and they approved it as such with some discussion as to how to tweak things like the Fork in the Road food truck rally, increased seating, and the likes, and some other details as to how the events are put on. But that was the slate of dates and times that they approved.
Thank you, Parker.
Sure.
Any questions, council?
Only one is, are we gonna update? I know previously we had kind of created a short pamphlet that had all these on it. That's gonna get updated with these new dates and events.
Yeah, that just wasn't prepared in time for tonight's meeting, but yeah, that's definitely something
But
that
we
we'll
got something to
plan on
hand
doing
out.
again. Yep.
The only thing I thought of, we've talked about cookies with council and it's in January and it's not exactly the most opportune time for people to come out, was if we ever wanted to consider doing something on one of the Fork in the Road food truck rally times, to actually have kind of a council in here to come in and meet us. Well, we actually have people downtown that actually might want to come in rather than just during the snow late in January months, if we ever want to consider changing that.
And that could be a good opportunity for the tent too, if we've got the tent we could place out.
Except it's on Monday nights.
Yeah, so we have meetings 3 Mondays, Roger and I do, but
Yeah,
or at
something-
any event.
Yeah, one of those other events, I was just thinking to try to partner with one of our other city events.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree that if we have a group of residents, downtown community members, even surrounding communities, that they can have an opportunity to come in, but we can discuss it. That's actually on my list to add to some study sessions soon too. Joel, I saw that.
I know. I did it. I was looking at you when I did it too.
Okay, any other questions?
Just real quick, because it's pertinent to the discussion, it was Mayor Pro Tem Galloway who said, why are we doing Monday nights? Because council can't enjoy the food truck rally because you have meetings. In the summertime, there might be a meeting where we really don't have much to discuss. And if you want to cancel a study session and do a tent instead, or,
That's a good idea.
there's ways to do that. Or if we have a really light agenda with nothing pertinent that has to be acted upon right now, you can cancel a meeting too on a Monday night, just like we cancel the first one in September for the parade, typically every year. So don't lose track of that idea. We can cancel a study session at least and, meet the public there, or you could just cancel a meeting all out, outright and just have a walk-up kind of a thing. So I wasn't thinking that at all until, you guys started discussing this item, and so something to think about.
Thanks, Joel. And yeah, I really like your idea, Peter. I know you sent a couple different ideas for Cookies with Council, so I think that we do need to discuss how to get better turnout and more input. Okay, so if there's no further discussion or questions, could I get a motion, please, to approve the downtown Allegan events for 2022?
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next, under agenda item 12 of board appointments, we have 12A.1, which is an appointment of Tom Slocum to the Planning Commission with a term to expire on December 31st, 2025. Mr. Slocum has actually attended a few of our recent city council meetings, and he was present also at Cookies with Council. His application was very enthusiastic. I think I wrote that back to staff when I got the application, that I really appreciated his enthusiasm for everything that's happening in town. So I do recommend that he be appointed. And if I could get a motion in support of that.
So moved.
It has been moved and supported. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. All right. So next we have agenda item 13, which is communications from city manager, council, and mayor. Joel, did you have anything tonight?
Just a reminder for council, I believe I emailed you this. I know I told my department heads. I will be leaving tomorrow for my manager's conference on the east side of the state. I will be out of the office Tuesday through Friday. I hope to get back in time for the groundbreaking ceremony at the old Shopko for the new CMH. Mark Weddy reached out to me and asked if I could be there, and I said, I'll try. It's at 3 o'clock. My conference ends at noon, so I should be able to make it. Tracy Stahl will be the acting city manager as approved by a previous council. They passed a resolution a few years ago. If you have any issues, you can reach out to her, but I'll have my phone, my email on me, so you can contact me too the whole time I'm over there. Lots of people are dropping out of the conference because of COVID concerns within the past 3 days, including 3 of the speakers. So, however, everything's paid for, and I just think it would be not good financial decision if I don't go. So I might just be working in a hotel conference lobby room most of the time. So feel free to reach out to me, if you have anything pop up. But Tracy will also be here if there's something that a fire has to be put out here.
Thanks, Joel. Safe travels to you.
Thanks.
Anything from other staff at all? Nothing? Okay, well, thank you all for being here. Bill, anything from you tonight? All right, how about from you, Dave?
I do want to cover one of the topics that came up for the study committee. We had a discussion early on about the community's relationship with the HDC. The HDC's been around for a while now, going on 30 years almost, and to say it's a difficult relationship is an understatement. So I felt I should let the committee members know that there would likely be assumptions, conjecture, rumor, stories being passed around the community about what the study committee is doing and what its goals are and why it's meeting, so that they're prepared for that. I bring this up tonight to ask, as a professional courtesy, if you do hear things from the community that are assumptions, presumptions about what we're researching, grumblings, I would ask that you bring those directly to me, regardless of who they're from in the community. I'd like to make sure that the way the study committee is perceived doesn't put the good people who have joined the study committee, who are passionate about it, who they themselves see a lot of value in this. I'd hate to put them in a position where they're under unfair scrutiny by the community. And I feel an obligation to be aware of that and make sure that I'm ahead of any of that kind of dialogue passing around. So again, just as a professional courtesy, I'd ask you to let me know if you hear things about this study committee.
Thanks, Dave. On that point, are you guys planning on having any sort of community input gathering?
Yeah, we'll let the study committee drive that.
Okay, thanks. Teresa, anything from you?
Here tonight, we're going to have our meeting on Valentine's Day on February 14th. That's not cause to move our meeting to Tuesday?
No.
It is, but still, it's Valentine's Day. I know, right?
Peter?
Every time I
Teresa, it just
open-
takes four. It just takes four.
Every time, and you tell me that again, you're gonna eat this pen.
I don't know, I don't really celebrate most Hallmark holidays, so I just do it on Sunday anyways. Nothing major from me tonight.
I don't think anybody specifically asked you, Peter.
We're just that way in our family.
Peter, apart from that, did you have anything else?
No, nothing else.
Okay. Roger?
Nothing from me.
Mike?
When I was snow blowing the driveway, my new neighbor, I was talking with them, and they were concerned about the streets, but I am hoping that the streets just didn't get done Sunday.
They did not.
But
Joel, could you speak to that? We've had
yeah,
a few complaints, so.
okay.
I didn't say it, but it wasn't good.
Okay. So, yesterday morning, it began with a text message from a downtown business owner. And then it followed up with a text message from Mayor Pro Tem Galloway, copied, the Mayor Andrus. I'm like, okay. I reached out to our DPW. Yesterday, we just salted and plowed the main roads, but not downtown. Talked with DPW staff this morning because of the text messages yesterday afternoon, and they're all cordial texts. They're good phone calls. There wasn't, everything was on the up and up. Personally, I was like, the roads look snowy, but then I also this isn't something I get passionate about personally. I mean, I don't mind walking in snow. I don't mind driving in snow, per se. But not everyone thinks like I do. So when I talked to the DPW staff this morning, the way we decide whether or not to come in on a weekend. First of all, the local law enforcement, so Allegan Police Department, determines whether or not the roads are safe for travel, yes or no. That's the first step. If it's no, then everyone comes in. If they're safe to travel, then it falls upon our DPW staff, which is Jeff Morey on the weekends, to say, do we need to go in or not? The roads are slushy. They're, tire tracks going down the roads, the side streets were not well. I got a 34-minute phone conversation from a previous council member today. She wanted to give me a piece of her mind on this issue, which was great, and I enjoyed talking with her on this stuff, but she was out plowing all the properties that she's responsible for, and she goes, I can't believe you didn't get the roads clear yesterday. So I texted, Teresa and Delora this afternoon, like, could you just hear any other complaints? And I'm hearing more as the night goes on. So I think I'm gonna have to have a conversation with our DPW staff, and, more than 2 or 3 inches, we need to come in on the weekends and, plow that snow away. They were in at 4 a.m. this morning, but, it snowed most of the morning. You know, it was a constant kind of snowing coming down today. I would say the roads are passable. Not the easiest probably, but they were passable. So I'm trying to get a feel from other council. Snow removal is such a, it's a tricky one, especially when you live in, you know, winter wonderland of Michigan.
I would have to add, and this is just maybe in me, that I understand the city police officers are in town, they know what the roads are. But our DPW staff does not live in the city. So for them to make that second call, excuse me, is not a fair way to do it.
And I would also agree and offer, if you live out in the county and you live in a subdivision in the county, those are the last roads hit. So they're used to driving on rough kind of snows until they get to the main
The
roads.
county worked on Sunday. They went in at 5:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And we have a city DPW to plow the city streets.
Correct, except for our state trunk lines, 222, M40, M89. That's handled by the state.
Yeah. My parents came down and visited yesterday, and my dad, pulled into the driveway and said, "The city doesn't plow the streets anymore?" And I said, "Well, probably focused on the downtown," but now I find out that the downtown wasn't.
So now we had 6 people since I sent a text to Delora and Teresa said, "Have you heard anything?" Because Rachel just called me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just say, I mean, I live downtown, and it's annoying for me, but it's not such a big deal. But I think we've got business owners, when we're trying to get people to come into our downtown, it doesn't look very welcoming when we haven't even plowed the streets for them. That's my concern.
I don't know, from my standpoint, I lived out in the country all my life, so yesterday's snow was like nothing to me, so I was just like, I'm driving my Prius right through it. I've driven through snowbanks
When
much
you live in the
deeper.
county, it's a little different. When
Yeah,
you're
I
living in the
know.
country, you
I would
ask
like-
for that. When you live in the city where there's businesses, you don't really
I
ask
would
for
like to
that.
see it
So,
probably when it gets to that 2-3 inches level makes probably sense. Or we do have a couple DPW workers that don't live in the city but are just outside of it as well. I think Todd lives just outside the city, if I remember, unless he moved. So
And snow-
maybe get some recommendations or people to go drive the streets if, I don't know his last name.
Yeah, Todd Heckman just lives outside the city. No, but he is someone that we could rely on. I think what I'm hearing is when it snows, clear the streets, period, end of discussion. And that's an easy direction for me to give my employees. Because I'm not hearing, but I'm hearing more than 4 saying, do better. Right?
that's what
That's okay. When I got the first text, I'm like, who's going out anyways? It's like football day. We're supposed to be watching football right now. But yes, thanks, Dad. Yeah, Mom. Both my parents are pastors, if you didn't know that. That's why I said that.
Well, I'm glad I didn't have to bring up that discussion.
I was gonna bring it up for you, but Mike beat me to it. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Mike. So I don't have anything further. I was just gonna mention that we'd had some complaints about the roads, so we're on it. Awesome. All right, so if there's nothing further, I'll go ahead and adjourn it at 7:49.